All right, now to our morning business report. A Social Security boost is coming to retirees in 2025.
And we're learning more about how Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene could impact the entire U.S. economy.
Channel 3's Jane King live at the NASDAQ with those stories and much more. Hey, good morning, Jane.
Hi, Caitlin. And Caitlin, good morning. Yes, Hurricanes Milton and Helene could have an impact on the entire nation's economy. Weekly jobless claims that we just got yesterday jumped last week, partly due to Helene and its destruction. And then Milton's numbers could bump up the jobless rate in the October jobs report, which will be released just before the election. Well, JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo kick off bank earnings today. The big banks can give some key clues into the economy, into the health of the consumer. Interest rates have dropped, so that could help consumers feel more confident. Of course, consumers also more digitally friendly, spending online and on mobile devices. And Social Security recipients will see a 2.5% increase to their Social Security and supplemental security income benefits next year. That's an increase of about $50 a month. It starts in January, and the adjustment is the lowest since 2021 as inflation has steadied. Well, it was a losing day for stocks. Inflation numbers for September were hotter than expected, and today we are looking at a lower start. Live from the NASDAQ market site, I'm Jane King. Back to you.